Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
I am the sword in the darkness.
And you're listening to Girls Nerd Out.
I am the watcher on the walls.
And now our rewatch has begun.
Dracarys.
Hey everyone. Welcome to anyone new and welcome back to our very, very loyal listeners that we love very much. It is me, Amanda, and my bestie, Andrea.
Hey.
And this is the second episode of our rewatch where we watched episodes of Game of Thrones 3 and 4. Episode 3's title is Lord Snow, which is very fitting.
It's funny.
It is. I will tell you, there's a whole lot in these two episodes that I forgot or never noticed. As soon as Ned gets to King's Landing, like, they already say something, like, that's really, I guess, like, biased or whatever. They're like, hey, do you want to change your clothes into something more appropriate?
Yeah, and it's like, the look he gives is funny. I think Sean Bean is a really great pick for Ned, because that's kind of like how I pictured him to react to things like that. But I'm just like, he can't even get off and sit before they're like, hey, you got to go to a meeting.
Yeah, and it's like, and do you really want to go to the meeting looking like that? I was like, damn.
What's wrong with how he's dressed? He looked fine to me.
Yeah, he should have stayed north.
Yeah. Maester Pycelle's in a freaking robe, and he's allowed to dress like that every day. Who cares what Ned Stark looks like?
And that's all because it's Ned Stark and he's from the north. That's like what you talk about. Like, the north is so far from King's Landing, and it's so independent. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And that's how a lot of Northerners dress. So I don't. It's like a jab at the North.
That was definitely a jab. Okay, I will say this: that scene between Jaime and Ned talking about his dad and his brother. Whoo-wee. First of all, I forgot how damn good Jaime Lannister's dialogue is in the early seasons. Okay, that's a travesty in itself. At first, you kind of feel like Jaime's being kind of decent to Ned, and Ned's not having it. And when Jaime is talking to him, and Ned's like, yeah, I'm sure you were silent the entire time the Mad King, was killing my brother and my dad. And Jaime's like, 500 men, and this room was silent.
I can't remember why they were killed. Was it because he thought that they were betrayers?
Lyanna.
Oh, Lyanna. Okay, that makes sense.
They went to King's Landing to demand Lyanna, and instead of finding Rhaegar, they found Aerys.
You know what's interesting? Aerys, like, he named Viserys his heir and like dropped Rhaegar as his heir. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, I've got a couple things later on I want to ask you about Aerys. I got some stuff in my head now that I'm curious about.
You know how people are just sitting there either staring at the throne with nobody in the room, or they're just sitting by it. It's got to be boring. Like, just staring at a hunk of metal.
A hunk of metal that every time they talk about it, it's a different number of swords. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think
Jaime's complicated, though.
He is complicated. I think, but he's not the only one that stares at it. I mean, Varys stares at it. Littlefinger stares at it at some point. I'm sorry. I love the Iron Throne in the show. I do. And in House of the Dragon, but I feel like I would stare at it more if it was like described in the books.
Yeah, they improved it on House of the Dragon, but people that have never read the books have no idea how high that throne actually is supposed to be. Ned is very quickly put in a small council meeting, and then he thinks that Robert's going to show up, and they're like, yeah, nah, that's not going to happen, Ned. And Ned gives some sass to Pycelle. Basically, kind of insinuates he's a traitor. I was like, oh, well, it's not a lie. But basically we find out like Robert doesn't do anything but drink and whore. So
That's
there's that.
you literally see that I'm like, wow, he's not one sitting in the Iron Throne. He has everybody else rule for him. It's kind of pathetic. Like,
Yeah, man, it's a shit show.
why'd you even take the throne if you're not going to actually rule?
Ah,
I wanted to mention, I thought, Varys, before they all sit down, Varys says, we're all praying for Joffrey's recovery. And I'm like, he has a scratch on his hand that's almost healed. What recovery?
Varys knows how to play the game, man. He's playing the game.
Yeah.
I mean, been playing it for quite some time.
He's very good at
So,
it.
oh yeah. So Ned is in shock because he finds out that the crown is in debt, 3 million to the Lannisters, and I would assume the other 3 million is to the Iron Bank of Bravos.
Oh, because they're going to do the hands tournament, and they're not calling it the King's tournament. They're calling it the hands tournament because he has a new hand, which makes sense. You want to celebrate it. That's what you do. But it's going to be It's going to be 40,000 to the winner, 20,000, and then another 20,000. So it's like 80,000 gold dragons.
Ugh.
That is a lot of money that, King's Landing is starving. It's starving. So is the Realm. Like, the Realm is hungry too. So I just thought it was interesting that they're going to spend that much money on freaking winning a tournament that doesn't even matter.
Well, and we know that King's Landing is starving. We get a lot of that in Arya's POV in the books. And for that reason, I think that's, kind of why we get it, is because you understand that it is just bleak.
And
Bleak.
it is bleak. And they explain that because Ned's just like, Jon Arryn would never let him spend all that money. And it's like, well, Jon Arryn can say as much as he wants, but that's, the king has to listen to that, and he doesn't.
Makes you wonder what Jon Arryn did, how he acted, and what was he planning. Because he's supposed to be like super honorable and everything. And yeah, Robert does what he wants, but I don't know. Maybe Jon Arryn let Robert get away with a lot because, he basically was the father figure for Robert and Ned.
I was thinking that because I kind of compare it to like Rhaegar Baratheon. He becomes Jaehaerys, the first hand of the king. He's like his first one. And at first he seemed like good, right? He seemed like a good guy. He seemed like, because he helped him get the throne and helps him continuously after that. And he also is like his person to take care of things until Jaehaerys is of age. And but then he turns just not evil, but like bad. Like, I'm not saying Jon Arryn is bad, but maybe that's like kind of similar to that. Like, I'll just let the king do whatever because of this, and I can't say anything. I'll just turn a blind eye sort of situation. Or Rhaegar is like good, but then turns like the king just kind of was like, it's vice versa. Like Jaehaerys is like, I'm gonna let him do what he wants, but then at the same time, I shouldn't,
So basically, the king would be like eroding the morality of the hand over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
So Jon Arryn is probably, I wish we got like a point of view during that time.
Yeah, you and I want a point of view of every time. I did notice that Ned comes across bossy and he has to check himself, and I realized he's used to being, he's basically the king. Yes, he's Lord. I get it. But he's been in Winterfell for so long, he's used to just telling people what to do, and then he has to stop and be like, oh, wait a minute. We're not at Winterfell. Which I like that they have little moments like that because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I like that too. And also, did you notice that Baelish already starts talking about Catelyn?
Yep. He hates Ned.
To her husband. It's just bizarre. He didn't like Brandon either.
Hell no. Brandon cut him up. He hates Ned because Ned got her. Like, oh God, Baelish. Let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you think about the scene with Cersei and Joffrey, where Joffrey is actually trying to tell the truth?
Yeah, I liked that.
Well, Cersei's just teaching him to lie. He's trying to say, like, that's not how it happened. They saw me. Like, you know, I was weak. And she's just like, no, no. And she basically tells him, when you're king, you're going to say whatever narrative you want. And you know how you and I talk about, would Joffrey be Joffrey in a different circumstance? That makes me think he would have.
Yeah. And he really doesn't want to marry Sansa too. And it's like, see, they should have just stopped it right there, to be honest. But I don't even know why he doesn't want to marry Sansa. She didn't do anything wrong.
Well, I don't even know if it's a theory. I don't think Joffrey has that. I think Joffrey's asexual.
Yes.
Honestly, I think Joffrey is 100% asexual. I think Marjorie knew that. When Tyrion sent women that work at a brothel to Joffrey, it offended him and made him angry.
Yes. I have been thinking that for a long time, but I just never said it because that always bothers me that he sends people in there and he kills them. But it makes sense why he's so angry because he doesn't want to sleep. He doesn't want to touch Sansa. He doesn't want to make children. We've never had that before in this world.
No, and I don't think anybody talks about it, but I think violence is what gets him excited. There's no hint of him being sexually attracted to anybody. Don't you think Marjorie picked up on that and knew?
Yeah.
I do.
Because she tries to be flirty with him when she, before he shows her his new weapon, the crossbow, and she tries to be flirty with him, but it doesn't work. So then once she sees how he reacts to her, like wanting to kill something, that's when he's like, hey, okay, like I'm excited now. But it's not about her. It's about her wanting to kill somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Marjorie knew that because just like how Marjorie was figuring out a way to get pregnant with Renly, she would have figured out a way to get pregnant with Joffrey using whatever they prefer.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, very. So Joffrey does make an interesting point to Cersei about needing to have an army at King's Landing trained and loyal to the crown. And Cersei makes a good point, like, where are you going to get that and how are they going to be loyal to you? But, I mean, Joffrey's not wrong. He's not wrong. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have an army at King's Landing.
But
because of a bunch of stuff.
But he said 10,000 Northmen. The North doesn't have a lot of men. I mean, the Wall has less than 1,000. So it's like, where are they going to get these men?
The only way that would work is if they were people from King's Landing and they made the army gradually. That's about it.
Yeah.
Because if they bring them from anywhere else, unless they allow people to come if they want. But yeah, you can't take people from the North and expect them to fight for you. They'd be mad and sweating.
I don't want it. I never have.
Sansa is going through a whole lot. And it's because of Lady and what happened. Ned tries. He brings her a doll. And she's just like, come on, man. I'm too old for this.
I mean, you never even see her with the doll before that. I mean, there's only a couple of scenes with her and you've never seen her with the doll. So, I mean, he's trying. I'll give him points for that. But she's also a young teenager. So she's going to go through her bratty stage, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, he's a dad and trying to relate to a teenage daughter is not exactly easy. So, look, we'll give him points for trying. He really did.
I like how he says war is easier than daughters, which is funny.
I think my parents would agree. Yeah. So Ned talks to Arya, finds out about Needle. Arya feels incredibly guilty about Micah dying. And I did notice that Arya calls him Micah, and even Ned calls him the butcher's boy. And I think Ned's doing that because Ned feels awful about it too. And calling him Micah just makes it too real.
Yeah. And I like how he explains to her because she hates Sansa, right? Because of what she lied. But but she had to lie because he says Sansa is supposed to marry Joffrey and she was dragged in front before the king and queen. So what was she supposed to do?
He does a really good job of explaining to Arya. He really does.
Yeah.
And it's easier for him to talk to Arya because, I mean, we know, I mean, Arya has needle. She's not, well, that's not me. So we know Arya's different.
But I also get where Arya's coming from, because Arya's just like, because, you know, he's like, she must take his side even when he's wrong. And she's like, why would you want her to marry somebody like that? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And I do like how Ned doesn't take away needle.
Yeah.
And he's trying to not seem amused by it, basically.
I love
But
that.
he is. And she didn't say it came from Jon.
Nope.
So I thought that was interesting too. She was being protective. I want to know what you think about the next scene. We have Bran. Bran's awake. And old Nan is in there, who is fascinating as hell. And old Nan says, crows are all liars.
Yeah.
Old Nan, everything she says, I feel like is a hint for something else.
Well, and if they're all liars, is she hinting at the fact that Bran is a liar? Well, Bran is a liar. He has lied. Even before he becomes the three-eyed raven, he's a liar. Like, he lied to his mom when she said, no more climbing. You promised me. He looks down at his feet and says, and then looks back up at her and says, yeah, I won't do it again, even though he does.
I mean, it damn near feels like old Nan is warning him to stay away from the three-eyed raven. I swear.
I think so too.
Well, she knows a lot, and I would just like to sit and listen to her, because he's being a little boy, and he's like, I want the scary stories. And old Nan's like, oh, I got them.
That's me.
I got them. Oh, man. Woo. Did you know? So she starts telling him she tells him about the long night.
Uh-huh.
She said it lasted a generation.
Yep. A generation where, so when they talk about, look, even Thorne has a moment in, I think, episode 4, where he talks about being cold and beyond the wall, when it was the last winter. Yeah. So like, the long night was part of a huge long time. And so we're supposed to believe that the one we're waiting for, where winter is coming, it took like 7 seasons for winter to finally come. And the night was just one episode.
Mm-hmm. It was the long half night.
So I'm sorry, I don't expect, and I don't. It took the White Walkers 7 seasons to get past the wall. So we're supposed to expect that all of this for one night and it's over. All of it, just one night.
One really dark evening.
If you ever read like any separate parts of the books for A Song of Ice and Fire, there are stories about the Long Night, and they talk about the White Walkers like 8,000 years ago. It shouldn't be a long time. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be just instant.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
My very, very knowledgeable and smart friend. Okay, so we know George was heavily involved with the earlier seasons. So any of this dialogue that comes out, he okayed. So I gotta ask you this. So old Nan is telling Bran the spooky story of the Long Night, and she said that the White Walkers swept through cities and kingdoms. What cities? What kingdoms?
That's a very good question.
See, don't you want to put a pin in that?
Yeah, because it had to been in Westeros. Couldn't have been past that. I mean, unless they did.
I mean, it was a very, very long time ago, and I guess I don't know. I don't know if there were cities and kingdoms north of the wall, which is now always winter.
It's possible. It could be that. And I don't understand, because like, we don't know what they want, and we never really understood what they wanted in the show. I still don't understand what they want in the books. But they're the most fascinating part of the story, to be honest, because it's magic, and they're dark, and they mock people, apparently. So it's just interesting.
Very interesting. Oh, and I did know that Nan says that the ice spiders are as big as hounds, and they're definitely bigger when they're mentioned in the books.
Yeah, they're like, I compare them. I made a video once on TikTok. It was a long time ago. I might remake it at some point. But the biggest ice spider in Skyrim is literally how I pictured the spiders in Game of Thrones. We missed out on a big spider. We did.
Yeah.
I want to see a White Walker riding, or another, whatever, riding on a big giant spider.
You want to talk about Cat? Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry. Like, every scene with Cat, like, I just rub my forehead.
oh, when she goes to King's Landing?
Yeah.
Okay, so her and Roderick are in King's Landing, and he's like saying, you know, there's not very many eyes back here. I don't know what part of King's Landing they're at, because they're not too far from the brothel, I feel like, but yeah, so he's like, there's not too many eyes back here, but they still would notice you. And she's like, it's been 9 years since I've been to the capital, and they didn't even know my name then. I'm like, I mean, she's got a point, but so the way that she's acting, I don't blame her, like, because you know those men come up and they're like, "Hey, you've been instructed to," and she's like, "Instructed, like."
I mean, it's almost immediate.
She interrupts them a lot, which is funny, but she is the lady of the North, so I get her attitude there. But then she gets brought to a brothel. I know that's like where no eyes would know that she was there, but like Littlefinger brought her to a freaking brothel. It's not exactly somewhere she would be seen.
Yeah, it makes sense because he is trying to hide her, but at the same time, you wonder why. But did you notice how different he looks in these earlier seasons? Like, he's all casual, Littlefinger.
Yeah, and then he gets all dressed up later. I think it's,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the budget or if it's because he's not clearly, I'm going to think of it this way. He's not really as in love with Catelyn as he thinks he is, because he dresses up more for Sansa.
Agreed. The damn dagger, basically, we are told that Peter had it. He lost it. What were they playing, cards?
It was at a tournament, I think, because they were betting on who would win, and he bet on Jaime Lannister.
Well, Tyrion supposedly had it, which later on Tyrion says he didn't. And then it was somewhere where I guess like all the Lannister weapons are.
And I think he was lying because he was just trying to make it look like Tyrion was the one that tried to kill Bran.
Yep. It's part truth and part lie, and that's what he likes to do, because if you sprinkle some truth in it, it's so obvious for me how much I liked Tyrion in these early seasons, because he does a whole lot. I mean, he's really thoughtful, because he's kind of watching everything, and Alistair Thorne wants everybody to fight Jon because Thorne is bitter, and Tyrion, he's basically trying to explain to Jon like the dynamics of what's going on. Like, you're not making any friends, Jon. And do you think these people were trained like you? No.
No, Jon grew up with a castellan and I mean a men not a castellan, men at arms. So, which is Roderick. Not everybody had a Roderick.
Yeah, and that's something that Jon would not have thought of. I mean, technically he's a kid, and Tyrion also kind of drops some knowledge to him about like why some of the people are there, and Jon realizes, oh, like not everybody volunteered to be here. No, they did not.
Pip stole some cheese because his sister was, his sister was starving. So I forgot about that.
I did too. And the fact that Tyrion points that out to Jon, like, changes everything for Jon.
Yeah, but the scene before that is really funny. I just have to say it because Jon broke Gren's nose. You broke my nose, you bastard, and he goes, "It's an improvement." That is my sassy Jon, and he doesn't stay forever.
Gods, the dialogue was good then.
I know, and his hair. Sorry, his hair is beautiful in that episode.
It is. Speaking of dialogue, so we have Cersei and Jaime, and Jaime is being sassy to his sister. And the quote, man, I forgot about this one. So Cersei's like freaking out. Oh, the boy's awake, the boy's awake. What are we gonna do? And Jaime's like, well, what's he said? And Cersei's like, nothing, he doesn't remember anything. And Jaime's like, then what are you worried about? And she's just freaking out or whatever. And he's like, I'll kill everybody. And he says, the war for Cersei's cunt.
I know. She slaps him, which I feel.
Jesus Christ. Jaime's so different now. Oh, God. I forgot he said that, and that is just iconic. So I had to mention it.
Well, you know, he also said something funny to Ned when they were in the throne room. He said, he said the king shits in the hand wipes.
Whew, man. Jaime Lannister, Jaime fucking Lannister has some good dialogue. Really good.
He does.
After that, we have Robert talking to Barristan Selmy, which this is another scene that I'd forgotten part of. Because Robert wants to, talk about old war stories. And I remembered the line, Gods, I was strong then. But I forgot he talks about the first person he killed, and it was a Tarly boy at the battle at Summerhall. And right after that, he basically says, like, he wished that boy would have just stayed up on the hill with, like, the other ones. Like, he regrets it.
Yeah.
And he drinks. But I will say this, and I know you enjoyed it. The shit that Robert gives Lancel, my God. I mean, like, so Lancel is Cersei and Jaime's cousin. And Robert just... he's like, Lancel, gods, what a stupid name. Lancel Lannister. I was laughing. And then he's talking about how he's surrounded by Lannisters. And I was like, dude, yeah, because you allowed it to happen over time, man. Jesus.
You know, when he talks about the Tarly boy, he says now the Tarleys bend the knee like everyone else. And I'm like, well, you ended a dynasty. You ended the Targaryen dynasty. You and the Lannisters ended that. You destroyed it. So, of course, people are just going to bend the knee to you because nobody's been able to do that. People have tried for a long time, but it's never actually worked. You ended the Targaryen dynasty. So, of course, people are just going to be, kissing your butt now.
Well, Robert likes to mess with Jaime, and so he gets Jaime to come over, and he's like, yeah, we're telling, battle stories, and he asks him, and I think part of it's curiosity, and part of it is, a jab, no pun intended, but he's like, what did the Mad King say when you stabbed him in the back? And Jaime's eyes gloss over. It's incredible acting on his part. And you can tell he's seeing it, he's not seeing what's in front of him. He's seeing the memory. And he said the same thing he'd been saying for hours. Burn them all. You asked me one time if I thought the Mad King could be a dragon dreamer. I'm starting to think maybe. Do you think the burn them all was part of a vision?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I kind of think that too.
But did you notice Robert's reaction to that?
Yes.
He was shocked. Genuinely shocked.
He was, because one of the tragic things, and it's told more later, but Jaime wasn't the Jaime is now. Jaime knew that the Mad King was going to kill everyone. And he's called, Kingslayer. And he's bitter now. Then, he was young. He looked up to the rest of the Kingsguard. I mean, like, he had that youthful hopefulness, and everybody shits on him for killing Ares, but he saved so many people, and either people don't believe it or they don't know.
Yeah.
So I do think Ares, when he kept saying burn them all, I do think that's some kind of weird, either a dragon dream or something. I think he must have been having visions. He couldn't tell if it was reality or not, man. He was gone.
I blame what happened at Duskendale for most of what happens to the Mad King, because he was not like this before. People say he was, but he wasn't. So I blame a lot of that, and it could be just torture. I mean, he was tortured, so it could be a lot of things. But yeah, I think once you start losing your mind, it's not really madness. I don't want to really call it madness. It's more like he's seeing things and he can't talk about it,
Yeah, being a dragon dreamer is not a gift, because we've heard of other Targaryens that literally stay drunk all the time.
Yeah, the Dunk and Egg novel. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a horrible burden, because you're watching tragedy happen and you don't know when it'll happen, and you see it on repeat, basically.
Dracarys.
Iconic scene.
Mm-hmm.
We have Daenerys and the Khalasar in the Dothraki Sea. And I find this incredibly interesting. She asked Jorah how the Dothraki get their slaves, if they buy them. And Jorah's like, no, they're given as tribute. Basically, here's slaves, please leave me alone. And it is stark contrast to her brother, who we know earlier told Jorah that he wouldn't have been reprimanded for selling people into slavery if Viserys was king. Then we have Daenerys, who's asking about, like, where do these slaves come from? How do you get them? And then immediately after that, she sees a Dothraki whipping a slave, and that's when she tells Jorah to tell the Khalasar to stop.
Yeah, she needs a minute, because it's kind of a lot.
The iconic line, because Jorah is like, now you're talking like a queen. Not a queen, a Khaleesi.
I like her garb, too. It's really pretty.
It is, and this scene is obviously more detailed and more rich in the books. She wants to feel grounded in this scene. She gets off her horse. She wants to feel the earth beneath her feet, the mud in her toes, because it's just a lot. And she just needs a moment, because you got to realize they were isolated growing up because they were hidden. And, like, this is a big old Khalasar, loud and all that. And she's just seeing a lot of stuff, and she just needed to take a moment. Well, her brother didn't like that very much.
You command the dragon. You don't command the dragon.
Oh,
you are not the
God.
last dragon, sir. God.
No, you are not. Viserys is all pissed off, and he jumps on her, obviously gets his sword out like a lunatic, and I think that's Ricardo. Isn't that Ricardo that
I
does
love
it?
him. I love him so much.
If you don't love Ricardo, I have beef with you. Anybody listening to this?
I'm going to fight anybody that says he's terrible, because he's a...
If you have a problem with Eerie, Jiqui, or Ricardo.
Yes.
Well, he's like, he gets his whip out. He's choking Viserys. And at first, she's like, please don't hurt him. And Jorah looks at her like, girl, you just said you were the Khaleesi. And she's like, she kind of straightens up and she says, tell him I don't want my brother harmed. Like, she, in a moment of like panic, she's like, please don't hurt him. And then she's like, oh no, that's not who I am anymore. So I thought that was really cool.
I like his reaction too. Like, really? You don't want him hurt? Like, not Jorah, but Ricardo. I like his reaction.
Ricardo's like, are you sure? And Eerie is like, you should at least take an ear. I mean, are you not even going to take his ear? Like, and she's looking at him like disgusted. And she's like, okay, I guess. I mean, I'd take his ear, so, whatever.
I would
But
too.
she does not take his ear. This is a scene I really want to talk to you about. Jorah makes a decision. Jorah makes a decision that he is going to follow Daenerys and not Viserys. Mormont, kill these Dothraki dogs! Which I'm sure most people have seen that scene. Jorah does nothing. He looks to Daenerys and basically, what do you want to do? Let me ask you something. We know at this point in time, Jorah wants to go back to Westeros. He is in communication with Varys.
Yep.
At that moment, when he chooses Daenerys over Viserys, why? Is he torn? Like, is it because he knows Viserys is just nothing? But wouldn't he want Viserys to be there because it would make everything fall apart?
I
I'm
think he's already in love
curious.
with Daenerys here, so it's probably
Okay.
partly that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know because that was a really big decision for Jorah to make.
I mean, he still betrays her, but like it's. I think he loves her here. I think he does.
He
I mean, how
just
can you not?
saw Viserys like hold a sword up to her. I mean, he's seen how awful Viserys is. So
Yep.
yeah, love. Hey, love's the death of duty. So
Yes.
I wanted to ask you that because it's interesting because he still betrays her, but that is the moment, my apologies because I like Harry Lloyd very much. Viserys ain't shit.
Well, and also if you see his reaction to her say a Khaleesi, I'm not a queen, I'm a Khaleesi. His facial reaction to her saying that is like, I think he's in love with her. So Benjen is going to go beyond the wall. He's a ranger. He's first ranger, so he has to. He belongs out there. And so he's got to go. And Jon wants to go with him. Jon literally just got there, so I don't know why he thought he could go. I guess that's just his naivety. But I don't blame him for wanting to go because he came here for this reason. But he has to train and he has to learn. He's not at that point yet. And even Benjen says, "You're not a ranger, Jon." So Jon's like, "I'm better than all of them," and he goes, "You're not. You're not better than anyone. Here, a man gets what he earns when he earns it."
Yep. And I think he is slightly frustrated because Jon hasn't fully understood that. And Benjen's a little hard on him. He is.
He
But
is.
the wall's a hard place.
It is.
And I think that's what Benjen's trying to do. Like, you're
And the
going to have
wall,
to be tough.
yeah, and the wall changes Jon a lot. So maybe that's why Jon's not as, sassy later. And because I don't think Jon's going to be as sassy when he comes back to life from the books. He'll be darker. He might still have his sass. But I feel like this place changes you because I want to know how Thorne was at first when he came to the wall,
Yeah, same. Yeah. And that's why I said, oh God, this place is miserable. Like, the day-to-day life. I don't like cold. So, like, my vision of, like, all this ice and snow, I'm just like, oh, man. Like, I wouldn't be able to function. No, you'd be wearing shorts.
I don't know, depending on how cold it is. But
I know you.
But like it has to be hard for them because there's not that many. Like I said, there's less than 1,000, and they have a lot of castles on the wall that are not manned because they don't have enough men. So it's really hard, and they're just working on Castle Black right now because again they don't have enough men for anywhere else. So I wonder how many people went with Uncle Benjen.
I know they say it at some point. It's not a lot. I want to say it's like 5 of them, something like that.
The scene with Tyrion after that, Tyrion and Benjen and the other guy, I can't remember his name, the one that takes people to the wall
Yeah.
from King's Landing. They talk about what's the weirdest thing they've ever eaten, and he mentions bear balls, and I'm like, well, I guess bear balls are chewy. That's what I learned from that scene.
I was like, Jesus, okay. I guess we're here. I guess this is important. Gee. I mean, the humor's fine. I mean, because
Well,
you gotta have a little bit of that. But
and
I was like,
Tyrion
man, we've
said
been talking
Dornish.
about that a lot. Oh,
I think
yeah,
Tyrion said
Jesus.
Dornish girl.
Yeah, he said, do Dornish women count? What's the song? I slept with the Dornishman's wife.
Yeah.
Daenerys is pregnant. We have a scene where she is trying to learn a Dothraki word, which is Ath-Jahakar, which means pride. And it's probably in reference to the braids, because like that's like pride, and it also means prowess. So to me, that would be a very important word to know, because Dothraki are all about their pride and prowess, man. I mean, that's why they don't cut their hair. So Erie's like, hey, when's the last time you bled? And Daenerys is like, huh? And she's like, yeah, you're with child. Girl, you knocked up. You knocked up. And she looks happy, surprised and happy. In the books, she's 14 when she becomes pregnant. Not in the show, but in the books, she's actually 14. I just wanted to put that in, just in case.
Oh, and then she goes and then Eerie goes to tell Ricaro that she wants what was it first? Not a horse.
Oh yeah, she's like,
what was
a goat? Was it? No, a goat's what he said to kill. Rabbit? One's rabbit.
Rabbit. We don't have rabbit. They don't have duck. Because she likes duck. Well, then a dog. And then Jorah's like, I don't think she'd want to eat a dog. And then she explains to him that she's pregnant. You know, he says he's going to go he says about the goat. He says, well, I'll have the boys butcher a goat. And then he says, I'm going to ride off to Kohar. And I'm like, I'm so glad I've been saying that correctly forever. I was worried.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was never, because they mention Kohar a lot in Fire and Blood. So I'm like, oh, I said it correctly.
And it's so interesting though, because Jorah finds out Daenerys is pregnant, and he's obviously going off to tell Varys to send whatever, a scroll. And at this point, it's like, it's so weird, because we're just used to like Jorah that's dedicated, but this is Jorah that wants to go back really bad. And it's so interesting that this is when he sends that letter to Varys that screws him over seasons later.
Yep.
And he tries to explain himself, but you know, it is what it is. He is going to send a letter to Varys so that Varys can tell Bobby B she's pregnant.
I feel like that's when he's exactly where he needs to be. Like he feels like I'm at some point, you know, at the point where the letter gets discovered. He's very in deep with Daenerys. The saddest part of this episode is Ned and Catelyn seeing each other, because that's the last time they see each other.
True.
I just feel for Ned more than anybody, but when he never.
Well, I mean, it's sad. It's super sad, because like they're not gonna live together, and like they don't know the next time they'll see each other, even though they don't. But they don't know. It could be a year.
Yeah, they don't get to see. He doesn't get to see Bran ever again. He doesn't get to see Rickon or Robb ever again. And then, the Syrio Farrell, we didn't mention him. He's at the end of this episode. Arya gets a dancing partner, and Syrio Farrell is like one of the best characters ever. He's not like a main character, but I love him.
Well, the thing about Syrio is he was once the first Sword of Bravos, and a lot of people want to know why he's there and how Ned found him. There's a
That's
lot
a
of
good
theories
question.
about Syrio. I mean, Syrio Forel has probably got 50 theories about him. And one of them is he dead?
Oh, so then where has he been this whole time?
He dies behind closed door, no body. You know how people are, no body? Theories.
Well, there's no body for Rhaegar. We don't know what happened to his body.
There's a bunch of theories about Rhaegar.
Yeah.
The only difference is that Syrio Forel doesn't have a huge part, but he makes such an interesting impact because he was the first Sword of Bravos, and he saves Arya's life later on. That a lot of people are interested to know, why is Syrio there?
I
And he talks like he's the first person we meet that speaks in the way that they do in Essos, because he says just so, which is not something people in Westeros say.
well, and yeah, and he's such a fascinating character, even if he's not a big impact, like a huge impact. But like, I think he's funny. I think he's sweet, and I like how he says, "What do we say to the god of death? Not today." So, I mean, he didn't say it in this episode, but I love him.
Yeah, and the actor that plays him is like super nice. And I've seen a lot of pictures of him with fans at like cons, and he is so proud to be Syrio Forel, and I love that.
He was very well casted. I'll just say that.
Yep. And I would like to know how I mean, come on, how'd the first Sword of Bravos end up in Westeros?
I don't want it. I never have.
Next, we have episode 4, which is Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things. You want to talk about Bran's dream?
His dream is so odd. So like you see Winterfell, and he's standing. He's in his dream. He's standing, so his legs are not broken or anything like that, or paralyzed. And he's shooting a bow and arrow. And you see a crow or a raven flying around, and it's a three-eyed raven, and he's curious about it. He follows it. We see this dream every time, and it's just interesting why he has it. And obviously because the three-eyed raven is trying to get his attention, but like you don't know why.
No, it's confusing, brief. I get why he's walking, because that's what he did the majority of his life, but
yeah, but the three-eyed crow, unless he's seen that before,
I don't know. That's why I keep going back to that old Nan. All crows are liars.
That's probably what she's trying to warn him about. Like, stay away from him. Don't follow him, because he does try to follow him. So
yeah, I really get that vibe. Man, wouldn't you love to talk to old Nan? Jeez.
I would like to hear all the stories. Like, my favorite story is a rat cook, but I like all her stories.
Old Nan knows all the creepiest stuff. And there, again, theories. There's a lot of theories about old Nan.
Well, she's one of the oldest people in Westeros besides Maester Aemon. So,
yep.
I wonder if they knew each other.
Hell, it wouldn't shock me at all. Not a bit. Oh, I did notice something interesting. A little nugget. Theon comes in and he's rude to old Nan, and that irritates me. Summer growls at Theon.
Yeah.
And you know what that reminded me of?
Huh.
That reminded me of, in the books, how Grey Wind growls. None of Rob's in-laws. None. He has to put, Rob has to put Grey Wind up.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I remember dragon stuff and direwolf stuff. It's really not shocking.
Well, I usually do too, but I don't remember that. I'd have to think about that one. But I think that's cool.
It's very heavily implied that Grey Wind has a sense about people. So and even Kat remarks on it. Kat is the one that says, Why do you not have Grey Wind with you? What are you doing? Why do you have Grey Wind locked up? No, this isn't right. And she's right. And Summer growls at Theon, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, so maybe Summer has the same thing, or he can sense that kind of thing.
I think so. Well, they're magic, so I think so. Yeah,
Well,
I
and
think they get a sense.
Theon's a shit person before know what happens to him. So I don't like him. I mean, I don't even like him here. I like how confident he is, though. Like, I don't listen to you. I don't like. He says, "What Rob tells me what to do, I tell you what to do." And then when he's talking to Tyrion, at some point in this episode, Tyrion says, "Your master." He calls Rob his master, and he's like, "He's not my master."
Man, I just thought it was really cool that they put that in. I mean, we lose things like that the longer the seasons go on, but just Summer growling at Theon, I was like, wait a minute. There you go. The direwolves know. They have a sense about people. Well, they say like if there's somebody out of the blue that your pets don't like, always pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So Tyrion is actually being nice, very nice. Rob is being very stoic, and it's understandable very much because from Rob's point of view, he is looking at somebody that very well might be the reason why his brother almost died and is crippled because Kat said, the Lannisters did this. It's a bit sad because we know that Tyrion's actually really trying to help.
Yeah, because, in the books, he has his own saddle created for himself because of certain things that his body can't do. And so him making a saddle, designing a saddle for Bran is very awesome. And he really does have a soft spot for people like that. And I love that. That's part of Tyrion I do like.
Same. I do like when Rob says, "I'm not your boy, Lannister." I like Rob.
Rob, he takes the Lord part very seriously in this.
He does. I think if Rob had lived, I think he's honorable like Ned, but I think because he's a warg and he is, I think Rob would be different than Ned. He'd be more open-minded, and I think Rob would have been a very interesting king.
Yes. That's unfortunate.
It is, and do you know what I've been seeing a lot of randomly? I've been seeing a whole bunch of Rob and Daenerys edits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why.
I don't ship them, but I see where they're coming from.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do. I get it. And some of them are actually cute. Somebody did one there. It's Rob giving her flowers and not Dario. Editors, how talented they are. Oh my God, you've got to talk about this. When Tyrion, you already brought it up to me on the phone, when he makes fun of the Greyjoy rebellion.
Well, he talks about the fact that he lost his brothers, and he was saying how Balon, I think the rebellion only lasted 5 minutes. It wasn't very long, and Balon was just it was just dumb. And I'm just he's basically making fun of it, saying he shouldn't have done it. And I'm like, no, he shouldn't have, because now look at it. I mean, he's got 2 sons that are dead, and for what?
I'd really like to know what went on at Pike before that.
And then you take, yes, me too. And then the Starks have Theon as their their hostage is what they call it. And Theon is sticking up for them, and Tyrion's just like, oh, look at you, how loyal you are to your captors.
Look, I mean, it's kind of surprising at first that Tyrion, makes fun of his dad's rebellion so much. But you know what it makes you realize if you really, think about it? Tyrion has more respect for the Starks than the Greyjoys, way more. And even though Rob was just not that nice to him, he's looking at Theon yeah, your dad, he's a complete idiot.
Well, the Greyjoys, this version of the Greyjoys, because I like the Greyjoys, but this version of the Greyjoys, they're just kind of pathetic. They're
Yeah.
not. They shouldn't even be in power, to be honest.
Look, the Greyjoys in the show are not your Greyjoys. Your Greyjoys are the ones in the books.
Yes,
And they're terrifying.
they're terrifying in the books. No, they don't make them like they used to. You know, they just don't.
Well, yeah, true. Which is why I would like to know more about the Greyjoy Rebellion, but book-wise.
Yes, not
Well,
show
like that. No. Because I'm just really curious.
Well,
like, what egged it on?
I want them to be. It's probably partly because they want to rule for themselves, which they should be allowed to.
If they could get them to quit reaving and stuff, that'd be one thing.
True.
Leave Bear Island alone.
Yeah, and Bear Island can be left alone too. Like just.
It's interesting though because Bear Island, which that's where Jorah is from, that's the Mormons. Bear Island's culture is so heavily influenced by the Ironborn that we get a lot of that in the books. Like the way they do everything on Bear Island is to protect themselves from the Ironborn. So, like, women grow up learning how to fight and things like that. So, Bear Island's culture is so different. And it's because, I mean, they're pretty close to the Ironborn. It's pretty fascinating, actually.
Yep.
And that's why we get little badass
Lyanna Mormont.
Lyanna. Yeah, that's why Lyanna's so badass. A lot of people don't know that. She's badass because she had to be. Yeah.
Dracarys.
Sam the Slayer time.
Woo-wee. All right. Andrea loves Sam.
Well, he's my favorite character.
She is so proud of Sam. Sam doesn't get anybody killed. It's not his fault. Sam becomes Grand Maester and he deserves it. Sam is the first person to ever cure grayscale, and that's legit.
He gets all his links off camera because apparently he's the Grand Maester without even finishing his training. So that's great.
I mean, maybe he's the Grand Maester.
Well, I mean, if Euron destroys Old Town, we don't have to worry about that.
Jeez. All right. Go ahead. Talk about Sam.
Okay.
It's a sad thing. It's sad.
So Sam joined the Night's Watch, and he's kind of pathetic. I mean, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying he is because he doesn't know how to fight. He looks pitiful. And so Thorne thinks it's funny, right? Thorne thinks it's funny, and that's fine. He can find it funny. It is what it is. Thorne's just a big bully, and he wants Gren and Pip and Rast and Jon to do something about him, but obviously Jon's not going to because Jon cares about people like that, you know? And so, Rast is not my favorite character either. I can't stand that guy. He's a big guy too, like Sam. He's not as big as Sam, but he's a big guy and he body shames him right away. And I never thought of this before, but now that I'm watching it again, I honestly think it's like internalized feelings because I bet he's been made fun of before.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And we do get the story of why Sam's there.
Yeah, his dad.
Is dark as hell. Yeah, tell that.
So his dad, who nobody likes, he's a shitty guy. But anyway,
bad. He's bad.
So Sam is the heir to his wealth and his house and everything. But he's just like, no, you're not going to be my heir anymore because there's nothing like Sam. All he wants to do is read, and he doesn't like that. So he's basically like, if you don't join the Wall, if you don't join the Night's Watch, we're going to go on a hunt, and you're going to come with. And at some point, something's going to happen to you. You're going to fall off your horse, and you're going to be gone. And I'm going to have the pleasure to tell your mom. When Sam said that in the show, I know it happens in the books too, but like when he said that in the show, I don't know why I never like took that in, but that hurt a lot to hear that because that is your kid. I don't care if he's not what you expected as an heir. I don't care. You know, your second youngest is just as, I mean, he's amazing. He's exactly what you want. So you could have just skipped over your heir and left Sam alone.
That scene.
And
I
his
mean,
mom,
his dad said, like, nothing would give me more pleasure than going to tell your mom you're dead.
it's sick because like we get to meet Sam's mom at some point and she's such a sweet woman.
Yeah. His sister's nice too.
Ugh.
That's brutal. That's really it. And you know his dad wasn't nice before that.
No, and I don't like Sam, but I don't like that he had to have to deal with that, you know, like that's just, it's sad. And that's why Jon takes to him, because he feels for him.
Yeah, after Jon hears this story, his opinion of Sam greatly changes. Greatly.
Oh, yeah.
So, we do have a brief scene with Ned and Baelish, and my only note is, why does Ned keep pissing off Peter? Like, it's just the wrong dude to piss off.
He probably doesn't know, like, how much Peter is just not a good person.
Yeah, Baelish is all about appearances, and when Ned, like, disrespects him in front of people, pushes him up against the wall, something like that, I'm like, yeah, man, that's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. Not a long scene, but an interesting scene. Jaime is outside of Robert's quarters, and you can hear women giggling, and he just has this, like, glazed over look. And we find out that Robert bangs hookers specifically when Jaime has watch. Like, that's the definition of petty. He hates Lannisters a lot.
He really, probably, I don't know if I'm trying to decide who he hates more, Targaryens or Lannisters.
He hates Targaryens more because he gets so fired up about it, but the Lannisters are a real close second. And Jaime is so despondent and sour. He's just like, how many women do you think are in there? And what's the guy's name? He's trying to deliver a letter.
Crap, I forget his name.
It's Ned's main guy trying to deliver a letter
to
Robert. Yeah. And I was like, man, Ned, you should have done that yourself.
He's like, I don't answer to Lord Stark. But for some reason they talk about Theon, and that guy's like, Theon is a good lad, and Jaime's like, I doubt it.
Oh yeah, I wrote that down too because I was like, he's right.
He's right.
Okay, so we go back to the wall, and Jon is telling the other guys, hey, you're not going to laugh at Sam. You're not going to do that. And they're like, And then who's the one that, like, turns around? Which one is
that's
that?
Rast. That's Rast.
Okay. So Rast turns around, and he's like, you can say whatever you want, but, you know, I'm going to whoop his ass. And I love this. So then it's night, and Rast gets to wake up to Ghost, looking scary as hell.
That's when Jon used to utilize Ghost for good reasons.
Yeah.
It's one of my
I think that's
favorite
why I
scenes.
got so excited.
Yeah.
I, like, wrote really big, Ghost.
Yes,
And,
Ghost is awesome.
Ghost is awesome. Justice for Ghost. So, all Jon basically says is no one touches Sam. And that's really all he needed to say. So, I will say this. In the next scene, nobody fights Sam. You know, they're just kind of like, eh. And Alistair Thorne is, like, mad about it. Even though most of what Alistair says is just really mean, the point of, if that's what we have, you know, you're going to go out ranging and you're going to die because you have a weak person with you. That's not a lie. That's an actual point that he's making. After that, he turns back into an asshole, but that statement is true.
Well, yes, I agree with that. That I am fine with him saying stuff like that. Because even, when he's with Sam and John inside the kitchens or whatever, not kitchens, but where they eat, he talks about like what's going to happen. You guys don't know what cold is. You don't know what any of this is. Like, he's trying to teach them in not a great way, but he's doing it.
And see, that's my thing with him, is he's a cruel man. But that in-between talk where he's explaining how bad it is out there and how you have to have strong people you depend on or you're going to die, and he's not wrong.
Sir Janos is talking about how they have like no, they don't have men to do, like, enough men to watch the city. So he's like, we just don't have enough men. And I thought that was funny because I was like, Damon's men would never, like, because they're not doing their job basically, and he wants more men. And Damon's City Watch would never.
I swear I made a note about that.
I
Wait a
swear.
minute.
Let me see.
Wait, no, I made a note about that for you. I put small council. Janice Slint can't control the city. Need to bring up to Andrea about Daemon.
Yeah.
Daemon can. It's crazy because most of my notes are like things I want to ask you, like what you think. Okay, so they're going to go to Vase Dothrak. And you have Daenerys. And she is already different. Because, like, as soon as they get there, Viserys starts talking about how it's just shit. It smells like shit. Sucks here. And she's like, these are my people now. You shouldn't call them savages. Which she would not have done before. There's no way in hell. So she's already different. Daenerys is realizing her brother ain't shit. And so she talks to Jorah about it more than once. She's like, hey, could my brother conquer the Seven Kingdoms even if my husband gave him an army? And Jorah's like, the Dothraki fear any water their horses can't drink. Okay, I want to know your opinion on this. Was Drogo ever going to help Viserys?
No.
So it was all BS.
I think it was BS because, like, the way that he talks about how Drogo is going the wrong way with my army. I'm like, because he is the leader of this army. This is not your army.
I'm so curious to know what that plan was. Like the Dothraki, if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. But what did he actually agree to?
See,
I want to know that.
I don't think Viserys knows any Dothraki, and I don't think Illyrio knows Dothraki very well. So,
see, I think Illyrio knows, and Illyrio probably arranged whatever that is. I don't know. I would just love to know. Because, later on, Drogo tells Daenerys, no, we're not crossing the sea for your iron chair.
Yep.
Okay, so he was not going to cross for Viserys. We know that. So, what was he going to do with him?
I don't know, but Viserys.
I don't know. I'm just very interested in knowing that, man. I don't know. I'll probably never know. But
Drogo, I don't know. He had a different idea in mind, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he probably saw Viserys and just assumed that Viserys wouldn't be able to handle it.
He can't.
No, he cannot at all.
He gets mad over little things.
Well, and there's also something very interesting because in this brief little scene, Daenerys is judgmental to Jorah about selling slaves. She actually defends Ned Stark. And I find that so interesting because, Jorah's like, I want to go home. And Daenerys is like, because Jorah's like, Ned Stark wants my head. And she's quick to say, you sold slaves. And that's so opposite of her brother. And that is also, I mean, that's one of those moments. Ned has them and Daenerys has them where we're meant to think they despise each other. They don't. They actually don't.
Well,
It's kind of sad.
yeah, but like it's funny how he says, I did it because I had an expensive wife and I had no
Mm.
money. And then she's like, where is this wife? In another in another land with another man or whatever. And I'm just like, what? Was it worth it to sell those slaves? Was it worth
Man,
it?
that's a whole lot in that scene. It really is. Because that's when you find out that he's been left. And at this point, we don't know why. But mm,
I don't think he wanted to keep selling people. So like, I want to know his wife because I think that people say that Daenerys looks like his wife and that's why he's in love with her.
yeah, apparently she's happy and rich, though. Because if you're highborn, we've talked about it. If you're highborn and you want to go away, you go to Lee's.
Yep, basically.
So we have uh, a somewhat uncomfortable bath scene, I guess I would call it, with Viserys.
Viserys, you're known as the last dragon. Nope.
Mm.
You are not the last dragon. That is Rhaegar. They say that a couple of times in this episode.
They sure do. And that's for good reason. Okay, so Daenerys has two Dothraki handmaids, and then there's Dorea. Dorea was purchased from a pillow house. She was under the impression that she was purchased to teach Daenerys how to please Khal Drogo.
In the book, she is.
Yes. In the show, they deviated. Either that or Viserys is just being an asshole and basically says, no, you were bought for my pleasure, which he's just an ass. The beginning of this scene, we actually get to see Viserys in a good mood. So again, that makes me wonder if he didn't grow up on the run and all that. Would he have been different? We'll never know. But Dorea is so fascinated with dragons. And I find that interesting. She starts asking him all these questions about dragons. And she's like, I heard like brave men killed them. And he's like, no, the brave men rode the dragons. Then he goes on to say that the Iron Throne was forged by a dragon. And he says it's 1,000 swords, which, yeah, that changes all the time.
Yep.
Another thing I thought was interesting is Dorea starts talking about some of the men that she met at the Pillow House. And she said she saw a man from Ashai with a dagger of real dragon glass. I was like, okay, I think everybody's Euron now. So
I'm like, who else would have dragon glass and why? It's got to be Euron. I think this was a hint.
okay, I feel like it was a hint.
Euron's been to Ashai.
I feel like it was a hint. The next one is a man that could change his face. So she's met a faceless man who changed his face in front of her, which is interesting.
I would like to see that.
Yeah. And the third is a pirate who wore his weight in gold and had sails of colored silk.
Is that Saladar Sand?
I would say, yeah. The wore his weight in gold kind of threw me off, but then I was like, nah, they're a lot more lavish in the books, so probably.
Because the only reason why I say that is because we've never actually seen his sails, so
true.
We've just seen him a couple of times.
Yeah, and he's over the top.
He's over the top in the books too, so very over the top. So I wonder if that's him.
Well, I'm about to back you up on something you said earlier.
What?
You made mention that Ares was different at one point. He wasn't always the Mad King. Viserys tells a story about the dragon skulls that were in the throne room at King's Landing. And he says that his dad had him recite the dragons' names And if he got them all right, he got a sweet. Viserys is describing a man that we never met or saw or heard about. And I find that very interesting. It's real easy to talk shit about the Mad King because we hear it from people that hated him. And then we hear about him, towards the end when he was just nuts. I'm real interested in before,
Yes.
So, did you notice the names of the dragons?
Some of them are not the actual right ones. I mean, I know he mentioned Vhagar and Meraxes, but the other ones, I didn't recognize those ones.
No, I, of course, wrote them down because it's me. So, from what I can tell, Meraxes, Vhagar, and Balerion were mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
That's because that had already been written. Yeah, like they had already been named. The other dragons, I think they took from places that exist because number one was Giscar, which that's an empire. And then the next one was like Valerion, which I would assume they just...
Valeria?
Yeah. And then Vermithrax. So that's just like taking two dragon names and putting them together. The next one was Esovius. So that's Essos. And then the last one was Arcane. And I don't know where that came from, but I feel like that name's familiar. I should probably look it up. But those aren't actual Targaryen dragons. So I wonder if there's a story behind that, or if they just made random
Probably
names
just made it up. They probably just made it up.
Yeah, but I had to write it down because dragons. So next we have Sansa and the Septa.
I feel bad because they're talking about you're gonna have many children, you're gonna have many, like you're gonna present them, you're gonna have son, you're gonna present him at court, and she's just like, what if I only have girls? Well, or no, what if I have a girl? She says, what if I have a girl? And the Septa says, well, gods be good. Hopefully you have both. And she's like, what if I only have girls? Well, then, the throne would go to Tommen. And then, and then Sansa's like, well, then everyone would hate me. I understand that fear. You can't control if you're going to have a boy or a girl or not. But, it kind of hurts because there has been a Targaryen queen before. There has been two sister queens that ruled, so I don't know why they always have to be about the boys.
It's sad that she's already worried about that.
She shouldn't be. She's a child.
No, she shouldn't be, but she is. And they haven't even been, I guess, they're not, they're technically, I guess, engaged, but, and she's already scared. She's just going to have a bunch of girls. That's sad.
It's giving when she finds out that that she's got her period, and that I think they did a very good job with that. But she was so scared in the books, like she was scared in the show too. But she was so scared.
Yeah, the POV really gets to you because, you're like feeling the fear.
Well, and it doesn't help that Joffrey is being a total douche to her for no reason.
Yeah, and she knows it. Like, she even says to the Septa, like, he hates me.
And nobody could hate you. Well, he does. For whatever reason, he hates her. So, even though she lied for him, he hates her.
Yeah. Yeah. He hates her because she saw him weak. And like you and I have already said, he's asexual. I'm just going with that. Well, you can't tell me he's not.
No, you can't.
So I think anything that has to do with like pushing a girl on him makes him angry.
Follow your favorite podcasters on all social media at Southern Mother of Dragons and at the Princess of Dragonstone.
Viserys. He drags Dorea by the hair, basically, into where Daenerys is. And she's like appalled. And he's like, so you send her to spy on me? He's so paranoid. And she's like, no, I sent her to ask you to dinner.
And he gets pissed that she was going to give him clothes. And he's like, you're going to dress me now?
In Dothraki rags.
And the next you're going to start braiding my hair. You have no right to a braid. You've won no victories yet.
And that is a very frequently quoted line. Why? Because by the end of the series, Daenerys' hair is all braids.
I love that.
Oh, no. Oh, Amanda, you idiot.
What?
I was about to cry.
Why? Oh, because her in the braids?
Because people say at the end her braids were murder. And they weren't.
No, they weren't.
Those braids were from freeing slaves. So, fuck Dan and Dave.
Yeah, they've ruined that.
Yeah. This is something that will happen off and on. So, it is what it is. Raw and unfiltered. Look, one of these days, we're going to do a House of the Dragon rewatch, and you'll have to hear Andrea getting emotional. It's fine. It's fine.
It is what it is, right?
Andrea loves me, even though I get very emotional about Daenerys and the dragons. She's talked me through many a moment. All right, so we're fine. I did notice this, though. He tries to hurt her. She takes a belt and knocks him back, and he looks shocked and frightened, and it reminded me of how Joffrey looked.
Yes.
Isn't that? Yeah, I kind of thought, that might be on purpose. It's a bit of a parallel. Two people that are supposed to quote unquote be king, and both of them look scared shitless. Okay, I'm gonna make you talk about the next scene. Love you.
What's the next scene? Sorry.
Next scene is Sam and Jon talking about sex.
Oh yes. So my notes are kind of all over the place.
I know, but I'm gonna make you talk about Sam.
Oh, so they're cleaning because nobody wanted to actually fight Sam, so this is their duty. And they're talking about how they miss. Well, Sam says he misses girls, and he doesn't understand how which it never specifically says that you can't have sex, you just can't have children.
True.
So he talks about how it's not fair that the higher ups get to go to Molestown and do whatever they want, but they have to be celibate. And I totally get that feeling. And then he says, "Well, I've never done it, but I feel like you have because Jon is so good looking." And Jon's just like, "No, I've never done it." And he goes, "What? You didn't know where to put it?" He's like, "I know where to put it." And
hey, stick him with the pointy end.
I definitely think he knows where to put it, especially when we see him with a certain character. He definitely knows where to put it.
True.
So he talks about how he almost did it once with Roz, and we've met Roz already. And he talks about how she's got red hair. This boy has a thing for redheads. I'm just saying. Yep. And why is that? Because he's a Targaryen. Anyway. Yeah.
And you know what backs you up on that? Like a lot. Okay. Cat has red hair, and Cat has been mean to him his entire life. You would think he would be opposed to red hair because of that. He's not. He's not. Kissed by fire.
He likes to stare at fire. He likes to look at redheads. He's Targaryen.
I mean, and just in case you don't know this, Andrea has red hair.
Yes.
Andrea's gonna date Jon Snow.
Yeah.
So,
but I get where he's coming from with, because, he never wants to do it because he's afraid to have kids. Yeah. He doesn't want them to have the life that he had.
Yeah, which that's so sad.
And I cried for him a little bit because I'm like, it's not right that he was treated like that.
No, it's not. And I mean, the way he delivers that whole bit, I mean, Kit's very talented for one thing, but he's like, the only reason I didn't is because I thought, what if I get her pregnant? And then he's like, Sam, what's my name? And he's like, you're Jon Snow. And he's like, yeah, I'm a bastard. I didn't want to have another bastard. Jesus Christ.
That was really good writing.
Oh,
in that
yeah.
scene.
Gods, it was good then.
I don't want it. I never have.
In that scene, which we already pretty much talked about, Alistair, I gotta ask you this. Maybe I'm insane. When he's talking about like how he had been out and like they ran out of food, and he said it was easy to kill the horses, and then he said, but when the people started dying, is he saying that they ate people?
Yeah.
Okay, that really threw me off because Stannis kills men that are cannibals in the books.
Yeah.
That was so weird to me, and I guess I never noticed he said that.
Yeah, and to me it makes sense because they probably only had enough food for what their mission was going to take. He said it was only going to be 2 weeks, and it ends up being 6 months. So what else were they supposed to do? You know, like it sucks that they had to eat people, but yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask you because I was like, wait, I think he's talking about eating people, which immediately made me think of Stannis, and I was like, whoa. There's a lot of differences between the show and the books, like so much. We get an interesting brief scene. Daenerys knows, like I've been saying, her brother ain't shit. And she just wants to hear somebody say it out loud. Really. I think that's what this is. And again, she's talking to Jorah, and she's like, my brother's the last dragon. And Jorah's like, your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon. Andrea loves Rhaegar.
Rhaegar would have been amazing with the dragon. I'm just saying, like I always cry when they bring up Rhaegar because I love him. I wish we got more about him, but oh well.
Well, here's another person co-signing that Rhaegar was a good person right here. So,
yes. Oh, and Barristan talks about him too.
Yep.
At some point. Yeah.
We're gonna do a damn tally. So he says Viserys is less than a shadow of a snake. And then Daenerys, it's like right now she is shedding a lot of her innocence and her being naive because she's like, well, the common people pray and, toast secret. They have secret toast to his health. And Jorah's looking at her like, the common people pray for rain, health, and a summer that never ends. So she realizes, that was just BS. And her brother ate shit.
Dracarys.
So then we go to the Hands Tourney, which is iconic for a lot of reasons. What do you think about the way Peter is with Sansa? Ugh.
He sees her, and I want to say he goes to her because she looks so much like Kat, but realizes she's a lot different than her. So, he's got the hots for her already. It is what it is.
He does, but like, why is he trying to scare her? Is it so like she trusts him or something? I don't know.
I think it's for trust because he talks about the Hound and the mountain and that's kind of a sad story. So I think he just wants her to trust him.
Okay, so we get the iconic Bobby B line of "Start the damn joust before I piss myself."
And Cersei just rolls her eyes. I hated her hair in that scene. It's like the worst hair.
I was going to ask you what you thought, because that is so different than anything else.
She doesn't wear that hair again. Like, it's just, I don't know why she'd want it.
Did you notice the dress, too? The dress was not the typical shape, and it was also not the typical fabric. It was a more coarse fabric, and it came up really high. Like, the neckline was super high.
It doesn't even fit her right. Like, I just didn't like it.
No, to me, that outfit on Cersei looks like the way they dressed in the unaired pilot, which, there's just a few pictures, but that looks like it belongs more with that type because those costumes were really over the top.
Yeah.
And there's one other outfit, I think, like that, and that's Marjorie's barrel dress. I will die on that hill.
We're going to see that soon.
Okay, so I texted Andrea last night when I was watching this, and I was like, I looked at my iPad and I was like, is that no, it can't be. And I was like, what? And then I Googled it. And then I text Andrea. I was like, I hope she's not asleep. I was like, wait, is that Jason Lannister? I
He
didn't
plays
know.
3 different characters. He plays Sir Hugh of the Vale, Jason Lannister, and Tywin Lannister. It's insane.
The fact that you despise Jason Lannister and that is the one person that shows up. We talked about him last podcast.
And Hugh of the Vale acts like a Lannister. He should be a Lannister. And I wonder why, because he used to be squire to Jon Arryn, and now he's like a knight. So I guess he's peaked now.
Oh yeah, he's got attitude.
He's got Lannister attitude. He's perfect for Jason.
Man, he really is. So Hugh is basically Jason Lannister.
That's
the Vale version.
Tylan is a completely different person than Jason. It's weird.
He was probably relieved. He's like, man, I've been playing the same asshole a couple times. Could y'all just do something for me? And he doesn't last long.
No, he has a sad death. His death is, oh boy.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And Sansa is like shocked. Like the mountain is the mountain, and that's how we know right out the gate who the mountain is. He's gonna kill. Not pretty. And the Hound even looks disgusted with his brother. Ooh, I want you to talk about Ned and Cersei.
She's just curious why he's doing what he's doing, because she's like, obviously she heard some things. But I like how she tells him that Sansa is the only Stark that likes it here.
Yeah, she makes a comment that Sansa's like her mom and there's not a lot of North there.
Which is funny.
Interesting.
Because that's very true. There's not a lot of North in her at all. But until she, I hate this writing style because you make her go through hell more than once, and then, which she was already starting to act better before, when she's not a whiny teenager, and then you put her through even more hell with Ramsay. That is when she starts acting like a Stark.
Yep.
And I don't like that, because she could have started acting like a Stark before, without this,
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but what they put Sansa through because that was the only way they thought a woman could grow. You know my problem with that. And we'll get into that when it happens, and we'll
I need Sophie to have like a tell-all or something about this, because I feel like she doesn't like that either, but nobody ever asked her about it.
Yeah, there's no way she likes it. I did find this really interesting. When Cersei, who in the show is very perceptive and intelligent, not so much in the books. So she kind of sort of breaks Ned down, and she looks at him. She's like, "You're just a soldier, aren't you? Your older brother was trained to lead, and you were trained to follow." And like Ned gets offended, and it's meant to piss him off, but it's not a lie.
It's true.
It's true. And in fact, I think the reason she realizes that is because that's how she's raising Tommen.
Yep.
God's the dialogue. So
all the second sons are meant to, except for if you're Maegor. Maegor was he was trained to be the leader, not the follower. But yeah, 99% of these firstborn, secondborn men, they're meant to follow, not lead.
She just looks at him there and just says that. And I mean, yeah, obviously she's not being nice, but it's more like she had a realization, and he does not like that at all.
Nope.
And he's like, I've also been trained to kill my enemies. And she's like, so have I. Well, that scene made me have a thought. Maester Aemon eventually tells Jon that love is the death of duty. Well, sometimes duty is the death of intelligence.
Yep.
That's our problem with Ned. That's it. When he becomes so loyal and so dutiful, that's when he doesn't play the game at all, and he doesn't see the snake in the grass a bit.
He should never went to King's Landing.
As always, it's Amanda here to say thank you to all of our listeners and to ask that if you liked this week's episode, leave us an honest rating. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to comment on our post over at our Girls Nerd Out podcast account on Instagram. If you're interested in buying any of our merch to support the podcast and so that we can continue to release weekly episodes, then check it out over at girlsnerdoutpodcast.com. Our podcast logo was designed by Chairman Bilal over on Fiverr. Our podcast merch was put together by me, myself, and I at Southern Mother of Dragons on all social media. If you're interested in my personal merch, check it out at southernmotherofdragons.com, and the designs for that merch were put together by Ryuchi Studios on Etsy after an in-depth back and forth discussion with me to find the perfect merch for me and my loyal supporters. The music played while I tell you about all the ways you can support us and the production of the podcast is Kawaii Girl by Pumpkin Pie. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you just listened to
Girls Nerd Out.